the biggest mistake that I've ever made? And here it is. Good morning to everybody and welcome to Timeout this morning. My name is Jack Windt and it's great to be with you this morning in the second Timeout of 2021. And this morning I'm going to be sharing with you about the biggest mistake that I've ever made in my life. So that's going to be interesting. Just hang in there and I'm going to get to it in a moment. But I just want to give a shout out this morning to all my friends and people I know that are still recovering from COVID and illnesses. I want you to know we're thinking about you and praying for you, and we know you're going to recover soon. Now, maybe you are watching Time Out and you also have a friend or somebody you know that needs prayer. I want to say that if you on our WhatsApp number at the end of Time Out, if you WhatsApp me with your name and the person's name, I will personally pray for them and send you a voice prayer because that is also very important, the people we care for. Now, just want to say to everybody that watches, thank you for engaging and also sharing with me your opinions, even if they're different to mine. It's great to hear what people think. Thank you for those that are sharing. We had a great post last week. A lot of people shared. I say thank you for that. And I also want to say thank you for Anthony for being such a great blessing to me. And to all the other people, I really appreciate it. Now, as we start this morning, I just want to say this morning, as I speak about the biggest mistake I've ever made, I'm going to share that to help you this morning as a person. And you may be watching and thinking about what was the biggest mistake or one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made in my life. And can I ask you, because I want you to engage me, maybe while I'm speaking, you can think in your mind, take it out of the archives or that file out of your archives of mistakes and bring it back into your memory. I don't want you to disturb you or to in any way stress you, but just to think about it, because I'm going to say something this morning about that file, that biggest mistake in your life, that may also help you even as I speak about the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. Now, perhaps that mistake was a decision that you made that was a bad decision. Maybe it was something in relationships. Maybe it was a financial decision, a business decision with somebody, a partner, and that's often happened to people. Or perhaps it was a career choice you made, and you look back and you say, of all the decisions I made, that was probably the worst decision I've ever made, the biggest mistake I've ever made. Now, just as you're thinking about that, hold your thought, because I'm just going to share one or two things about mistakes this morning that are important as we carry on. Now, you may have heard and you may have said this, like I have, that we learn from our mistakes. Now, you've heard people say that. Now, I want to say to you, maybe it sounds very controversial this morning as I share that, I don't believe that's true. If mistakes are there to move us forward in life, because that's where we want to go. We don't want to get stuck with our mistakes forever. We want to, if we've made a mistake, we want to say, how do we go forward? Now, because that's the learning curve. How do I move forward after making a mistake? Now, that's what I'm going to say to you this morning, that I don't believe that making mistakes help us to move forward. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's much of a learning curve at all in making mistakes. Maybe a small one. You've all heard the saying, that's a very famous saying, that we learn from history. That, Jack, we don't really learn from history. And what that simply means is all the mistakes people have made in history, you'll think that because of all those mistakes, we won't make those mistakes again. Well, we do. And that's why I say we don't really learn much from mistakes. I always have said that if the cost of making a mistake exceeds the value of the lesson learned in that mistake, then that mistake was not worth learning anything from. And so it brings me to the thing about, if you say, Jack, are you crazy? Don't you make mistakes? Don't you believe that people make mistakes? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm a lot like maybe some of you or many of you when it comes to mistakes. I don't like to make them. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'd like to get everything right all the time, honestly. But I don't. Unfortunately, I also make mistakes. All I'm saying is I've learned that I don't really move forward in life because I've learned from my mistakes. As a matter of fact, I think my mistakes sometimes slow me down. But we'll get to that now. Now, just want to say this to you, that if you want to learn, and I want to learn from mistakes, there's an easier way. I'm going to share that with you. You know, there's always somebody that feels that they want to make mistakes and learn from them in life. Now, I'm not dissing people. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there that think there's a value in making mistakes. So if you want to learn from mistakes, I would say the easier way would be learn from other people's mistakes. Then the pain isn't there, and also it's got no cost. Maybe then there's a value to learning from mistakes, and maybe then you can move forward. Now, I don't know if you are too, but behind me I've got a shirt. I haven't worn it for many years. 1988, I was last in a race, but I just brought it along as a symbol. You know, in a race, a running race. If maybe you've been in one, maybe you've seen one. You know, there are two. Apart from you as a participant, there's only two groups of people that are important: those people that are ahead of you, and those people that are behind you. Now, those people that are ahead of you frustrate you because you're trying to catch them, and those people that are behind you inspire you because they're trying to catch you. So these two groups are very similar in our lives because it helps us move forward in the race, or in the way of life. We move forward because when we look at the front group, we get inspired to say, I need to run faster to catch those guys. I can do it. And when you look at the guys behind you, you get inspired because they can't catch you. And you know that if you keep moving forward, they won't be able to catch you. So in a way, both those groups are important to us, and everybody in life. This is a principle that works everywhere. Everybody in life probably has those two groups. Unless you're running right at the back of the race, then maybe that rule doesn't apply. So let's get back to the biggest mistake that I have ever made in my life. And here it is. Are you ready? Are you thinking about, even as I speak about maybe the top three or one of the biggest mistakes you've ever made in your life, and it's making you feel a bit uncomfortable? Great, because I'm going to say something I believe that can help you. Now let me start with me, Jack. The biggest mistake that I've ever made, and here it is worrying about the biggest mistake I've ever made. And the reason I say that, because mistakes in themselves don't move us forward in life. And when we think too much about them, they slow us down. As a matter of fact, I know of people that have stopped living because of the fact that they've made mistakes. So here is something I want to share with you that is much more effective as far as a learning curve is concerned about moving forward in life than learning from one's mistakes. And here it is. If you want to move forward, and if you want to have a learning curve that's much more effective than making mistakes and learning from our mistakes, then it would be make wise decisions to start with. This is something that I have learned. I've learned that if I make wise decisions, the chances of making mistakes are much less. As a matter of fact, they are much more effective in moving me forward in my race than any lesson that I've learned from a mistake. So when it comes to making wise decisions, I want to give you 4 things that can help you. 4 things that have helped me. The first one is, when you want to make a critical decision or important decision, I'm not talking about a decision what to eat or maybe to go for a walk. I'm talking about important decisions in your business, your family, your life, whatever, your calling. Then I want to say to you, these are important things. The first one is think about your decision. In other words, give your decision thoughts. I have actually found that very few wise decisions were ever made impulsively. As a matter of fact, most wise decisions were made by people that think about them and give them some thought. Because, you know, people say, I've got a good idea, I need to do this because before it goes away. Well, if it was a good idea today, chances are it'll be a good idea tomorrow. If it was a bad idea today, Jack, the chances are it's never going to become a good idea tomorrow. So think about those things. The second one I want to mention about making good decisions that move us forward in life, that we can learn from, is to take wise counsel. Now, I don't know about you, but if you know a wise person, and if you're around a wise person, then I always find it's valuable to go to that person and say to them, you know, this is what I'm thinking about. What is your opinion about my decision? and find that wise person and ask them their opinion. Then, if their opinion or their decision that they give you or advice is opposite to your original decision that you've made, then have the good character, have the tenacity to say, I'm going to put my decision aside and I'm going to go with the good counsel that I've got. Because if you don't, then all you're asking that person for is, and all you're really doing is just you're just humoring them, to say, we think that your advice is important, but actually when they give it to you, you do nothing with it. So it's not just about finding wise counsel, but also applying that wise counsel to your decision and then making your decision. The third one, I would say, that is very important to me as a Christian, is to pray. Many times when I have to make decisions, I go and pray and ask God, because God has this crazy scripture in the Bible that says, "Be ye perfect, even Jack, as I am perfect." Now, that's impossible. How can I be perfect? Then I realized what God was saying is, if you come alongside me and you come into where I am, and you then from that vantage point, Jack, make a decision, you will have every decision a right decision. You will, in a way, Jack, be perfect in all your decisions. But you have to wait upon the counsel of God and pray. And then when God does speak to you, you have to be man enough to and woman enough to put aside your decision, original decision, and replace it with what God's decision was on that matter. If you want it to work, if you want to learn something, and if you want to move forward in your life, you have to adopt that decision after you've prayed. And then lastly, what I've learned is that the fourth thing about making good decisions that move us forward in life is you have to look at the long game when it comes to decision. You can't just make a decision because it's going to give you joy tomorrow or the next day. You have to look at the long game and say, how will this decision, and I'm talking about important decisions here, how will the important decision affect me in my long game, maybe in a year's time, in 3 years' time? And when you do that, what it does is it changes the way you see decisions, because you realize decisions have consequences that can affect you years from now or can bless you years from now. And so you make those decisions based on the validity of the fact that that decision is going to have a long-term effect. Now, I want to say to you, the biggest mistake I've ever made was to worry about the biggest mistake that I've ever made, instead of realizing that I need to make wise decisions going forward. And I want to encourage you this morning listening, that to forgive yourself about that biggest mistake or mistakes you've made, to start realizing you're not going to learn from mistakes, and to start saying the way forward is to make wise decisions. My name is Jack Windt. You've been watching Timeout, and I'll catch you next week.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song.